All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our meeting. I am calling our July 16th, 2019 West Grey Council meeting back to order. We did meet at 6:30 p.m. for an in-camera session, and we are rising out of in-camera, which is moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hergert. Nope, pardon me, I'm taking... that is not the one that I am to use. It is moved by Councillor Hergert, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby returns to open session at 7:04 p.m. Members of Council, calling the question. All those in favour? Opposed, if any? Carried. I will tell you that as Mayor, only the items that we went in camera for the discussion were the only items that were discussed. All right. So, matters arising from closed session, there are none. We are now on a comment period, and this is the section of the agenda which allows for anyone in the audience to raise their hand, and I will acknowledge them. They could go to the podium. You have a maximum of 2 minutes, and for a full time of 10 minutes for this particular comment period. So are there any members of the public that have a comment pertinent to this agenda? Okay. Well, the agenda for tonight, which is July 16, 2019. There are agenda copies, as the clerk is saying, are at the back of the room, and it was also online and at our library. Okay, so yes, please go. You'll just keep time for me, please.
Okay, as you may notice, there's a lot of people in the audience that are carrying chicken.
Could I please have your name? And I must also advise...
My name is Norman White.
Thank you, Mr. White. Thank you very much. I have to advise that we don't permit placards or signs of this nature according to our procedural bylaw. So although the chicken symbol is adorable as anything, we just can't permit it at this time within our meeting. Please proceed.
Okay. I'm here to respond to last week's meeting in which I was not allowed to speak. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to clear up a few things. First of all, I have a godson who used to work at one of the egg hatcheries in Hanover. It was not actually a hatchery. They produce the eggs, fertilized eggs for other chicken institutions. And you've probably seen these chicken barns along the side of the road, so you know what they look like, but some people here may not know what goes on inside. So my godson told me that inside one of those barns is 20,000 chickens. So they're a mixture of male or roosters and hens. And these chickens are brought in at a pullet stage, and they're allowed to mate in a certain area, and then they go to the various roosting boxes and lay their eggs, which come down eventually a conveyor belt, and then they're sent off. The chickens are brought in as pullets, and after 6 months, they're shipped off to be slaughtered. So these chickens have about a 6-month life. During that lifetime, they don't see the sun at all. They don't see grass. They don't see the nature as we know it. They see a very unnatural situation. So when I hear people saying that they're experts at chickens because they run these chicken houses, I don't think their advice is really applicable to what we do. Our chickens feel the sunlight on their feathers. They feel the grass under their feet. They can pick at bugs, and they can pick at ticks, and they can produce the most delicious eggs, far better than what you'd get in the grocery store.
Okay.
deep yellow-orange yolks.
I appreciate your comments. That is your time, and thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
I very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
There was a lady in the second row. Please, when you go to the podium, if you could just state your name, and we're keeping time on the comment period. So thank you very much.
My name is Claudia Striloke. I've been a friend of Norm's for over 20 years, and I want to let people know that Norm studied biology at Harvard in the United States, so he's well aware of how to take proper care of animals. Okay. I did some research. There's major cities in Canada that allow chickens. I have a list here. It would probably be too long to read. It's 2 pages long. There's over 100 municipalities in the United States who allow backyard chickens within towns. There is rooftops of hotels in France allow chickens for to get rid of the compost so it doesn't end up in the landfill and to turn compost into food. Cities in Italy, Germany, and France allow chickens. Worldwide, chickens are allowed in cities, and I'm kind of baffled that the town of Durham has such a hard time making up their mind. There is no danger to the public. Chickens come vaccinated already. Apparently, I wasn't here at the last meeting, but apparently there's a lot of misinformation in the arguments that the town puts forward, like that chickens have to be vaccinated and you can't trust the public not to do it. The police, they come vaccinated already. To dispose of a dead chicken is really easy. You bring it to the vet, it gets disposed of in the same way as a dead cat or a dead dog. Chickens can be registered, so the municipality would know who has chickens and who doesn't. I also think that the comment that a bylaw would be hard to enforce, it would be costing too much money, is not really true, because you don't have bylaw officers controlling everybody's property every day to enforce all the possible bylaws. Bylaw problems only arise when there's a problem with somebody holding chickens and they're not doing it properly. So I think some of the arguments that the town has put forward are also outdated. Was research from like the year 2000 to 2014, and we're now in 2019. And in the meantime, a lot of municipalities have allowed chickens successfully. For example, in England, there's a nursing home where they have a flock of chickens for the entertainment of the elderly, and it produces food for the nursing home. And it also allows the elderly to contact with the animals, and it has great benefit for the elderly and the chickens. So it seems to be a really beneficial thing any way you look at it. There is no harm done to anybody.
Good. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I very much appreciated that information. Yes, please. Go ahead.
My name is Anna Gruda. I'm going to have to quickly edit my 2 pages that I wrote, so
Thank you.
do what I can. Your Honor, Mayor, Councillors, Clerk, I'm glad to have this opportunity to speak on the issue of allowing backyard chickens. First, a little history. Chickens were first noted in the Neolithic times in the culture of Oceania in Southeast Asia. A record of domesticated chickens was kept in ancient Greece in the 4th century BC. The spread of chickens from Asia, Greece, Africa, Europe tells much of the migration of human culture. As a matter of fact, chickens are the most populous birds across the entire planet. There are more chickens than any other bird species. So our human existence has not been threatened by close proximity to chickens. As a matter of fact, chickens have sustained us for thousands of years. So from the people that I have heard that would like to see a well-regulated program in West Grey, I've heard them them saying chickens are good companions, and they have a desire to comply to all the regulations. And even we've had several confessions from people who already have chickens. Some of the facts that I've heard here at the council had been a bit askewed. I was thinking about that idea of someone saying only 300 people in West Grey responded to the survey out of 13,000 residents. Well, given that the urban areas comprise of Durham, Ayton, and Neustadt, the population of those 3 towns adds up to about 3,000. So I think the other 10,000 people live rurally, and they wouldn't be bothered to write, to fill out a chicken survey because they already have access to having chickens. So looking at what happened in Owen Sound, they changed their bylaw. I think you did mention maybe 2 people were taking advantage of having backyard chickens. Disclosure, I won't be having my own chickens. I'm here to support my neighbor Norman and others who have come forward as chicken owners. And I've seen and heard emotional, heartfelt, and rational discourse for the case of chickens. And I think we do have to acknowledge there is more of a reason than collecting eggs, as they are cheap at the store, comparably to the financial and emotional investments the owners have made.
Thank you very much. Yes, please. Can I accept one more after this? One more on the 2, okay.
Hello, my name is Davin Singh. I have raised chickens for 30 plus years. And the last council meeting that I was at, you decided to just cut it short. I believe we live in a democratic society, do we not? And if we do, we should look at the results of the survey. And I think it was over 70% of the people that surveyed agreed to have chickens. So I don't understand what the problem is with going forward. Other cities, other towns have done it, so maybe we can learn from them. Do not unilaterally step aside and make your own decisions. Listen to the people. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on any item on the agenda, including this one? Yes, please.
Good evening, West Creek Council.
Hello.
My name is Christine Ferrand. I currently live outside of town, and I do raise chickens. But I have a confession to make, raise chickens the summer that I did live in town. I had no issues with my neighbors. We didn't have a huge flock. They were fenced into a coop. We didn't have a rooster. A lot of the suggestions that were made on the survey were things that we did. I feel like the survey, as Mr. Davin Singh mentioned, speaks well to what the community is open to. There were discussions about fences, there were discussions about roosters or not. Seems like your answers are in the survey results. I hope that you will consider what steps were taken with the survey and act according to those results. Thanks.
Thank you. Where are we at with time? Clerk Turner? We're at 10? Certainly, if you want to bring forward, I can accept that, and I appreciate the work you did on that. Thank you very much. Do you have your own copy? Okay, very good. Thank you. It will be put in our official records, and I'm submitting that to the clerk at the appropriate time. Clerk Turner, does that conclude the time amount as per? Okay. Thank you very much for all of you that spoke on comment period. I very much appreciate it. We are going to move on from item 6, the comment period, which is item 7, public meetings, NA. Item 8, part 1, consent agenda. I do have a motion before me, moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hergert. Be it resolved that items 1A to be it resolved that items A1 to A2 inclusive contained in Part 1 consent agenda be adopted as printed, and further that the authorization be given for the action to be taken as may be necessary to give effect to the recommendations contained therein. Questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you, Clerk Turner. So we are now on Part 2, regular agenda. And we are now item 9, communications from mayor and members of council. I'll start, and then I will go to my right, Councillor Hutchinson, so you'll be prepared. All right. So I first off want to acknowledge our 2019 grant recipients at Grey County. There was a Starter Company Plus opportunity through the business enterprise. So All Sorts Acres Farm in Ayton, Tim and Jennifer Osborne received a grant. And Alana Vandervelt of Florine Farm in Neustadt received the grant. Sarah Thompson for Calabunga Kids out of Neustadt also received the grant. And I think we should be very proud of those individuals and those entrepreneurs for achieving that success. I was at an old-fashioned picnic that was hosted by the Ayton Greys. It was very nice. It was actually yesterday, I believe. I attended and brought greetings at the Durham Arts Fest Street Festival, and I know Councillor Hutchinson will have more to say about that. I am looking forward to the fabulous Festival of Fringe Film this weekend. I also attended at Foodland in Durham because our West Grey Dodgers ball team was having a fundraiser. They're going to Saskatchewan later on to compete in a tournament. I dropped by Grant's Independent Grocers just to show support for the Elmwood Community Centre Joint Board of Directors. And I was very fortunate to host the County Warden on a tour of West Grey. So that is what I've been up to. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Just to comment on the Arts Fest, I think we had another very successful festival. Good turnout, weather was great. We had some issues with our construction zone and making that work and traffic flow, but another year, hopefully that won't be an issue. So I'd just like to thank all the people involved between the Lions Club, who did a lot of work, the Arts Fest Committee, the Art Gallery was involved, the number of volunteers. And obviously volunteers are a big part of it, and we can always use more. It takes a lot of people to put something like that on, and we always seem to struggle to get enough volunteers at the end, but I'd like to thank all those people that were involved. One other thing that happened I didn't get to, but I know I was aware of, and maybe some other staff or other councillors got to it, was the movie night on the Friday night that was put on by the Ball Diamond Project group. Open air movie for the young families, and I haven't heard too much on it, but hopefully it was a success. So thank you.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Hamilton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. Just want to highlight one event I went to. It was the opening of the new exhibit at the Durham Art Gallery, The Vocabulary of Water. It's a hands-on exhibit. You can get down on your hands and knees and literally get dirty working with the exhibit. You're going to experience the impact of plastics and contamination in our waterways, and this is really important to us here on the Saugeen River. So I hope you get out to this exhibit. It's on until September 9th.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. I don't want to repeat a lot of the things that have been said already. Just want to make mention tomorrow I will be delivering greetings from the mayor and the balance of the rest of council, obviously, to Durham Furniture for celebrating 120 years in business. So that's quite a milestone in the community. Next Saturday, I'm going to be playing in the Durham Fighter Fighters Golf Tournament. Well, I'm going to go out and try, but so anybody out there, stay out of clear. I did go out and visited County Road 71, where we're actually doing some work resurfacing down there, and they're doing a recycle program, and it's quite a thing. So when you go through that section of the road there, it's they're grinding it and they're recycling it right on and applying it right all on the same times throughout the time that's allowed in 3 days. And I was at Grants for the Elmwood, but I was too early.
I see.
Thank you.
It's the effort that counts, certainly. Councillor Shea, please.
Yes, like the Deputy Mayor, I attended a number of these events. I won't go into all of them in detail. I'll just mention in passing that at Arts Fest, I was happy to participate with the Sauntering Band, a musical ensemble that I'm a part of, and we're looking for tuba players and trumpet players. So if any of you can do that, we'd be welcome to have, we'd like to have you.
I have to say, you're a part of my favorite band. I just absolutely enjoy the band. Thank you. Councillor Herger, please.
So I also attended Arts Fest. Lots of great people, lots of art downtown. Even the castle that was part of the children's display was sold off. So all proceeds were headed to great community projects. And thank you to the Lions Club for kicking that off and all of the numerous volunteers that helped put that together. Yesterday, I participated in the Durham Lions Club meeting regarding Heritage Walkway Bridge and the redevelopment of the park on the west side of the bridge. I also did attend the opening of the water exhibit, and it was really a fantastic presentation of art, workable art, and a real statement piece. So I encourage everybody to get to the art gallery and check that out. There is some paving going on at the Normanby Arena today, more than normal. Council approved this as a 2019 budget item, and so that's taking place. We'll also thanks to Eileen Becker for hosting us there yesterday at the Ayton get-together. It was just a nice afternoon to discuss some issues, rural importance.
Thank you very much. Councillor Townsend, please.
Yeah, just got a few additional things. Obviously, the Art Fest was well attended, and I think pretty well everyone made it. And I liked the way that it was really well attended. And we did get a lot of folks from a lot of different areas that came to see it. And I think they enjoyed the music as well as the food. And I heard they began to run out of things, so that's a good sign that everyone did enjoy themselves. Also, as far as the Ayton seniors group that we talked about yesterday, it was an old-fashioned picnic, and they do it on the third Monday of every month, and council got invited. And I think it was the last one to leave yesterday, and got an invite to go to any future one. It's the third, not including August. So if anyone from council wants to go or even join the group, you're welcome to do that, in case you didn't get that invitation personally. The other thing is that coming up for the rest of the week, on the 18th, there's the fabulous Festival of Fringe Films coming up, and that's on Thursday. On Friday is the 118th Crawford's Church Garden Party. Elmwood Community Center, and 118 years is a long time to be having a garden party, and the fact that it's had to move shows you the interest that it's drawn over time. Tim's Special Olympics Day is on Saturday, and so feel free to donate if you can and wish to. It's for a good cause, and I think we do pretty well when they do their dunking and et cetera, when they do it up at St. Peter's and St. Paul's.
Yes.
And there's a lot of support for them there. And the other thing is, coming up August 2nd to the 4th is Symphony in the Barn, and it's at Glencolton Farms, which is Michael Smith's, and it's a 3-day event, and usually very, very well received. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. All right, that concludes item 9. Item 10, delegations, there are none on this agenda. Item 11, business arising from the previous minutes, NA, previous meeting, NA. Item 12, we are now on staff reports. We'll begin with the Director of Finance and Treasurer, and as per usual, we do have the approval of vouchers. Director Mighton, is there any statement you'd like to make at the top of this, or shall I now go to questions of council? All right, members of council, are there any questions with respect to the vouchers? None. Thank you very much. I do have a motion before me, moved by Deputy Mayor Tom Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Shea. Be it resolved that the Director of Finance and Treasurer be authorized to pay the accounts presented as voucher number 14-2019 in the amount of $586,181.29 of the Municipality of West Grey. Calling for questions first. Now calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It does carry. The second item, Director Mighton, is for information and correspondence. Thank you, Clerk Turner. Information correspondence. Is there any comment, Director?
Yeah, no, just that there was one, I had miscategorized one of Councillor Hamilton's special council meetings in the committee column, so I fixed that one. But it was just in the meeting category. But other than that, it's just for information, just to...
Thank you. Members of council, questions? All right, well, that takes us off your report. Thank you very much. Thorough as usual. Now we are on the clerk's report. Just let me put a check mark on my agenda there. The first item, Clerk Turner, cancellation of September meeting.
Yes, so there was some discussion between the mayor, CEO, and myself, musing about the possibility of canceling the September 3rd council meeting. The reason is there's both on August 27th a committee of the whole meeting and a council evening meeting, so there probably wouldn't be a lot of business to be dealt with at the September 3rd council meeting. So I just look for any direction from council.
Councillor Townsend, please.
Under new business, we have a topic about potentially moving the committee of the whole on the 27th. But if we follow that one up, then it's going to be problematic to hold council at the same time as committee of the whole, because committee of the whole is scheduled for that morning currently, and the council is in the evening. So if we move the committee of the whole to the evening, do we actually, would it be preferential, I guess, to cancel the 27th and keep the 3rd, and that way you don't have that. So I'm suggesting, why don't we deal with them both together as one discussion rather than look at them separately?
Yes, and we can look at that. I just want to, in this discussion, Councillor Shea, I know you brought a notice of motion at the last meeting, and it's duly before us today. I'm just wondering, procedurally here, were you changing your motion at all? And maybe just provide some information to that effect, if you choose.
Well, I'm very open to changing the motion. We've had some discussions that would lead me to think that it needs to be tweaked, and these dates that I proposed are flexible. So I think we should try to arrive at a date that works for everyone, and perhaps not stick with the dates that are in the notice of motion.
All right, thank you for that. Councillor Townsend, does that give you some satisfaction there for discussion purposes?
It was a very general comment. I'm not sure what adjustments you'd make. And so if we're talking about canceling a meeting, if we adjust the committee of the whole and the council so they're not on the same day, not in conflicting times, that's one solution. The other one is to, as I say, eliminate the council meeting on the 27th and keep it on the 3rd. But that's, I think, the detailed discussion we require rather than just a general statement.
Sure. If council wishes to bring that item to new business as part of that overall discussion with the majority consent, that would be fine, or two-thirds consent, I should say.
You might have heard me talking out loud while you were speaking, just to put a strategy in place, but does that suit every member of council at this time? So we'll just hold this one over to new business item. All right, thank you. I apologize. So we are just going to put cancellation of September 3rd, 2019 council meeting item over to new business to have a full discussion as it will relate to Councillor Shea's motion this evening on the agenda. All right, City of Brantford, Clerk Turner, please.
So the City of Brantford has forwarded a letter to all Ontario municipalities indicating its endorsement of a resolution by the Large Urban Mayors Caucus of Ontario, otherwise known as LUMCO. The LUMCO resolution recommends that additional local regulatory controls be approved by the province respecting cannabis stores, is detailed in the Brantford City letter. One of the recommendations is that municipalities receive 50% of all excise tax collected by the province on the sale of cannabis, but not being limited to revenues in excess of 100 million, which is what it is currently, which I think is quite a good idea. Would help with the revenues, definitely. Another recommendation is restricting cannabis stores to a commercial zone or area for the retail stores. I think that's another one might have some merit. The one that might be an issue is originally when the cannabis stores, some of the regulatory provisions came into place, I think originally there was a minimum 500-meter setback from certain sensitive areas such as schools, daycare. So LUMCO is actually, the province changed that because there was some concern from municipalities that the 500-meter setback would be onerous. It would make it very difficult for these retail cannabis stores to locate given the large setback requirements. So that had been reduced to 125. So LUMCO is looking to reverse that back to 500 meters. So I'm not sure. That would probably definitely have some impact on being able to locate certain stores within, for instance, the town of Durham, Village of Neustadt, given those setbacks, certainly from the schools in Durham in particular. And then daycares, I'm not even sure where all the daycares are in the urban areas.
Questions, members of council? Councillor Hergert.
So in the second and third recommendation that you said had merit, the second one would be reducing it to just a commercial zone. And then the third would be the 500-meter separation distance between that commercial zone of where we would have cannabis stores located and all of these sensitive areas. So that, like 2 and 3 can't really go together for us. They'd have to be individual. Right? Like I could see one.
It would definitely limit, certainly, the capability or to meet that setback threshold and from the commercial zones.
So I do see merit in either, the first one and the second one, or the first and the third one, and we should be supportive of one of those, because really the previous legislation didn't give us very good setbacks at all, frankly. So I think we could take, attach onto this and say we can give merit to these items, but the difference between our rural area, where we just don't have massive commercial locations, we couldn't probably support all of this as the large urban mayors may. So I would be supportive of the first and the second recommendation and leaving out the third recommendation and send a supporting resolution as well. So I would move that.
Okay, I'll take that as an indication of a motion. Councillor Hutchinson and then Councillor Hamilton, please.
Well, I think the part about getting a greater share of the revenues is a good idea. This is something that's come down to our municipality level, and we've received some monies for policing, but very little. And I think if instead of waiting till the government receives 100 million, that if they could share the wealth a little bit and give us 50% of the revenue, the excise tax, I guess is what they're saying, 50% of the excise tax, I think that would really help our municipalities to cover some of the costs of enforcement. Yes. So I'd be in support of that part of it for sure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hamilton, please.
I concur with Councillor Hergert. So I would second the motion that we would support in part 1, part 2. Yep.
Okay, further? No further questions? All right, I'm just waiting for the motion and see if it can come back your way, Councillor Hamilton. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the motion before me is moved by Councillor Hergert, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby supports the resolution respecting retail cannabis stores by the large urban Mayor's Caucus of Ontario, and in brackets LUMCO, passed during its May 24th, 2019, as recommended by the Brantford City Council, save and accept the 500-meter setback requirement. Thank you, Clerk Turner. And further, that a supporting letter be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, Minister of Attorney General, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and local MP and MPP. Questions? Councillor Hergert.
Does that get to both of our small caucus, like our small urban and our rural caucus groups as well?
Nope.
I didn't hear those. So
No.
could we add those, please?
Yes.
I think other small rural areas might find the merit in this as well.
Seconder, Councillor Hamilton.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay. So could you just repeat those again, please?
The small urban and rural caucuses.
Okay.
Awesome, yes.
You're good with that. And Roma? Yeah. All right. Anything further? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. All right. Thank you, Clerk Turner. The next item, bylaw number 50-2019, proposed lease agreement between the Durham Agricultural Society and the Municipality of West Grey.
So you do have a copy of the instrument number that was referred to in the proposed new agreement. Well, I do find it's somewhat redundant. I don't see any harm in including it if it does facilitate the signing of this agreement, because without this lease agreement being signed, we may be minus some lands that we need. So I don't think it's really any harm if council does proceed to pass this bylaw.
Councillor Townsend.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you very much for finding the 1952 agreement that no one else seemed to be able to find. It's pretty hard to agree to a contract that references something and it's being insisted upon because the terms are so critical, but yet you can't find it or read it. So thank you for that effort.
And thank you for saying that about our clerk. I appreciate that. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Were you still clerk at that time?
Yeah, our clerk chooses not to respond, but appreciate the humor. This is very good counsel for that. All right, so are there any other questions with respect to this item? And if not, then it will be for consideration during our bylaw section. So I'm looking around after I ask the question. All right, so we are now on proposed bylaw, just like the last item, it was a proposed bylaw. So this one is bylaw number 55-2019 regarding John Welton, Custom Home Building Limited Subdivision Agreement. Clerk Turner, please.
So as noted in my report, the subdivision agreement is before you is bylaw 55 of 2019. I have attached a letter from Christine Loft, the planning consultant, representing John Welton Custom Home Building, with the amendments which have been incorporated into the subdivision agreement. Additionally, there have been a few other proposed amendments. Section 7, or Clause 17 of the agreement was changed just to reference the mapping to be within Phase 1 lands or building. And then Clause 21 was expanded regarding the parkland dedication fee. So certainly supportive of those proposed amendments and supportive in general of the subdivision agreement being considered for passing by council.
Certainly lots of work has gone into this. Questions from members of council? I am not seeing any. All right, same as the last item, this bylaw will be for consideration during the bylaw section. Okay? So I think that comes to our last item, which is, I'm sure, why most of the individuals in the audience are here for. This is the recommendation from our July 9th, 2019 Committee of the Whole Planning meeting, and this is in regards to proposed keeping of hens / urban chickens bylaw. Clerk Turner, would you please start this discussion?
So there was a motion passed, as noted in my report, by the Committee of the Whole Planning on July 9th. I do have a motion in support of that resolution if council wishes to entertain it.
Okay, members of council. Councillor Shea, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a brief prepared remarks that I'd like to share, which I can share with you afterwards. We've had 3 delegations from people who keep or want to keep chickens in urban areas within the municipality for pleasure, companionship, and as a food source for eggs. We were presented with expert background information prepared by the clerk, detailing the minimal health risks and federally recommended practices for reducing these risks. We conducted public consultation and a survey which both demonstrated overwhelming public support, 75%, and minimal opposition or concern, less than 25%. We had our planner outline the steps involved based in adopting such a resolution based on similar initiatives in neighboring municipalities. We sought comment from the Public Health Office, who delivered us a report written 14 years ago, which cautioned against raccoons and questioned the economic or health benefits of backyard chickens compared to store-bought eggs. And our clerk prepared a draft bylaw based on one adopted by Saugeen Shores 2 years ago. We had 4 meetings where we had considerable discussion and debate and where questions were asked and answered. These questions included: how will legally permitted chickens be enforced? The answer: the same way that currently illegal chickens are enforced now. That is, through a complaint to our bylaw enforcement officer. How will we deal with people who keep urban chickens in an inhumane or unsafe manner? Answer: the same way we deal with people who keep other pets in town, such as dogs, or indeed rural farm animals in an inhumane or unsafe manner through provincial and municipal animal control regulations. How will chicken owners dispose of deceased animals? The Saugeen Shores bylaw suggests animals be disposed of by a vet or livestock disposal service. In short, the same way we currently dispose of other deceased urban animals such as dogs and cats. We have spent an inordinate amount of time, of council time and staff resources on this simple request from a small number of residents who want to be allowed to engage in a harmless pastime. In our last Committee of the Whole meeting, we passed a resolution to reject their request and ignore the results of our public consultation because, I'm afraid, we exhausted ourselves through this process. I don't think this has been a divisive debate, but it has been a difficult one, and we are all trying to act in good conscience. In our Committee of the Whole meeting, we acted on a yes-no motion, but we overlooked a middle option that was actually contained in the original Saugeen Shores bylaw, a 2-year trial period during which urban chickens be permitted, after which we would review the positive and negative impacts and then either terminate the trial, modify the bylaw, or make it ongoing. So I move that we approve backyard chickens in principle for a trial period of 2 years, and that the appropriate zoning for this be drafted during our comprehensive zoning bylaw review, which is coming up in the fall.
Okay, thank you very much. Further comments? Councillor Townsend, please.
I think that's actually an excellent compromise, Councillor Shea, and I would second that.
Okay, so we've got that as an indication of a motion at this point. I will be looking for comments or questions from members of council. Councillor Hutchinson.
So I'm not in favor of the chickens in our urban areas. I spoke about that right from the start. And there are a number of reasons. My biggest concern is staff time in terms of enforcement, putting this together and whatnot, given the amount of other things that we have on our plate at this time. But I've also thought about it, and I believe that we have some people out there that probably have chickens which are in violation of our bylaw. So as our Councillor Shea has suggested, maybe there's an opportunity to compromise here in terms of, my first thought was, well, what about an amnesty or a clause where we allow people who have chickens to continue on if they can prove from their neighbors that there are no issues? Because one of my concerns would be if someone has chickens in their backyard and all the neighbors around them don't want chickens in their area, that becomes an issue. So maybe there's a way of registering people who have chickens and with some kind of support, letters of support from their neighbors to say there are no issues, we're okay with it for now. And like Mr. Councillor Shea has said, we'll put a time period on it that we reevaluate. But as far as opening it up, spending a lot of time, changing our bylaws, doing a lot of work to make this work, I don't think we can or should do that at this time. But if we can do it in a modified nature and get it done, then I'd be in support of that.
Clerk Turner, with regard to a 2-year pilot on this, is there a requirement to change our zoning bylaw?
Yes, whether it's a trial period or permanently, you do have to do a keeping of hens bylaw. You really, council really does need to enact the provisions, certain provisions that will dictate the keeping of the hens. And then conversely as well, the West Grey Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw does not permit any kind of fowl, including chickens, currently in the urban areas of the municipality or on any properties, even in the rural area, that are less than 5 acres. So those would have to be passed and approved prior to permitting the keeping of hens. To do so would certainly conflict with our bylaws, and I don't think council should be in that position.
No, thank you for that comment. Further comments from members of council? Councillor Hamilton.
I think this is a brilliant compromise. I think we've worked really hard in drafting the bylaw as far as we've brought it. We've put a lot of time and energy. We've been very thoughtful. We've engaged our community and we've heard back from our community very strongly, their views and the parameters that they would want to see around keeping chickens. We've We've asked opinions of professionals regarding chickens. We have all the information I think we need to go forward and try out a pilot project. We know that other municipalities have backyard chickens, so we know it's possible, and we can learn from these municipalities. And I think too, the question today about backyard chickens, for me, if we were to say no, the impact would be more than just saying no to backyard chickens. If we were to say no today, we'd be saying no to the 75% who supported the survey. And I think the impact of not recognizing what the public's asking for would be significant. I think that our citizens won't feel heard and validated, and they'll lose trust in us. And I know that we all care about building trust in the community, and I know that we all want to do what's best for our community. And I think listening to what the community is asking for is the right step, and I think a 2-year pilot project is not very risky and is a responsible next step.
Good, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you. I'm going to hold firm on my biggest concern is the cost to monitor this. We don't know what it's going to be. Everybody says wonderful things, that's fine. We get 10 people that don't do it. What's that going to do with our bylaw? We're behind right now with what we're trying to do with everything else that's going on out there. So I think there's a big cost that we don't know, and budget orientated or really cautious, I won't support it. If we need to look at it, again, talking about democracy and the 75%, et cetera, I would possibly entertain a 1 year. I'm not going to support 2 because 2 years we're going to get too far down the road where it may not be feasible to recover our losses. So if everybody wants to entertain that, I would consider possibly that. But again, I'm still concerned about the cost to taking care of this whole thing. Thank you.
Is there any further speakers here? Councillor Hutchinson.
So I'm sort of in agreement with Deputy Mayor Hutchison. If we did a 1 year, I would like to have some kind of input at the end of that, not just from council, but from the public. My other thought was if we go down the line, if you went as far as 3 years out, 4 years out, and have put it on our on with our election, which again we talked about doing that with our Sunday gun hunting, and but then that's a piece away. So maybe in a year and we reevaluate, maybe see where it is. I still think there's a number of people that didn't bother responding to the survey that probably will down the road.
Further comments? Councillor Herger.
So I am not supportive of this for a couple of reasons. First, being public health. Water, I see head shaking and I think to myself, if my well were in Ayton, right next to my neighbor's septic, do I also want to add in chickens? And every single one of us should consider water quality. We are personally liable for water quality to ensure that everyone here has good, safe drinking water. If they're on a municipal service, that is one item. That would be different in Neustadt or Durham here. But first and foremost, public health. The second would be bylaw enforcement. Earlier this year, we've been handed down additional enforcement requirements from the province, and we actually still don't even know the budget ramifications this year, in year, what those will be. The other item about having a bit of a grandfather clause, let's say, on the chickens, would be that you're somewhat rewarding bad behavior. You're saying you haven't complied, you haven't been in, within the specifications of our zoning, and now we're going to allow you to do. So back to the point of bylaw enforcement. Whatever bylaw that we have, we need to be ready to enforce it. We've talked about this at several meetings, how we have a bylaw enforcement officer for 1 day a week. So unless something changes staff level to be able to accommodate further, items. This is not a priority to most of our community, and I'm not saying anything bad about anyone that likes it. I live in the rural area and I've had my own chickens, but it is different when you are in town in close proximity to other people. And I hope that everybody who currently has chickens has their neighbor's permission or approval or consent, because to me that's really important. You're living in close proximity to your neighbors. We want everybody to get along. That's a utopian idea. However, this I feel is just going to add complications to it.
Thank you. All right. No, I'm sorry. I'm just not allowed to, under our procedural bylaw, entertain your comment, although I know you've got public input. I clearly understand that. So thank you very much. I think I've got Councillor Shea.
I would entertain a one-year pilot if that was what suited council.
Okay. And who was your seconder? Councillor, first of all, we don't have this before us. Okay, so we do have a mover. You were the mover. A seconder was Councillor Townsend, correct? Would you agree with that change from a 2-year pilot project to a 1-year? Okay, so that's just before.
Sorry, I would agree, providing the 1 year begins once we get our zoning, et cetera, done, because with a 1-year period, then you're going to really restrict it if it takes us a couple of meetings to get that done. So I want to be fair to the test period. That's the only comment I would make on that.
Okay, that's fair. I just want to keep up with how we are with the motion. Clerk Turner and then Councillor Herger, please.
Yes. So regardless if it's a 1-year, 2-year trial period, that's fine. I think there's a way of getting the keeping of hens bylaw and even the comprehensive bylaw to facilitate that if it's approved by council. I'm just concerned about the second part of the resolution that speaks to appropriate zoning being drafted when the comprehensive zoning bylaw review comes up in the fall. So in other words, this is inferring that there really will be no provisions drafted even when it's approved. And I would not recommend that. I think you do have to have the provisions in place before that, whether it's a 1-year or 2-year period, is enacted. So I think council, my opinion, the wording how the resolutions previously stated should somewhat be changed. Maybe it's appropriate and further that appropriate zoning be drafted for consideration by council to that effect. If something like that, if the mover and seconder would be okay with that.
Thank you for your input on that, Clerk Turner. To keep up with how we're moving along in the discussion, the mover, Councillor Shea, would you be agreeable to that?
Yes.
And the seconder, Councillor Townsend, would you be agreeable to what the clerk has said?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so we're up to date on the motion. I will have it read at the appropriate time, but I'm looking for, outside of Councillor Herger, which I will call upon, I will also ask further if there's any questions. Councillor Herger, please.
So as I remind all of council that we are personally responsible for water quality, I would also respectfully ask for a recorded vote.
Yep. Okay, I was expecting that, and that's just fine. Our clerk will be prepared for that. Councillor Hamilton, please.
I think Councillor Hergert raises a good point, sorry, that our municipality is maybe not unique, but we have urban centers that are on well, and not all urban centers are on well. We also have some on water. But I think we could address that, Councillor Hergert, in the bylaw that we draft, that we could also have setbacks away from wells or away from these sensitive water areas. So I think we could address that within the bylaw. And once again, I'll just say one more time, I'm very concerned if we say no today. I'm really concerned about our relationship with our community and the trust that we're building with our community.
Further comments or questions? Okay, at this point, I'm going to ask the clerk to read the motion because we've had a few changes along the way.
So moved by Councillor Shea, seconded by Councillor Townsend, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves backyard chickens in principle for a trial period of 1 year, and further that appropriate zoning be drafted for further consideration by council.
Okay, comments or questions? Recorded vote? Okay, so I don't have to call it. Clerk Turner does.
Councillor Hamilton.
In favor?
Councillor Hergert.
No.
Councillor Hutchison.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hutchison.
Yes.
Mayor Robinson,
Yes.
Councillor Shea,
Yes.
and Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
So that is passed 6-1. The resolution carries.
Okay. So we have a one-year trial on chickens. All right, so that concludes the items on the clerk's report. We've got a bit of work to do on some bylaws. I expect they will be put forward on Committee of the Whole planning for the zoning, and obviously what we are fondly calling the, happily calling the chicken bylaw will be on a Committee of the Whole. All right, we'll just ensure that. And for members of the public, please watch for our agendas so that you'll see that these items will be coming forward, okay? You're certainly welcome to attend the meetings as per usual. All right, thank you very much. All right, so we are now moving on to item 13, which is bylaws. So we've got a few before us, and I will look for those motions if they are before me. Okay. So I need, is this the motion to take? Okay. All right. Could you pass that down, please? The first proposed bylaw is bylaw 50-2019. We just got to do a couple things. We tabled it during our July 2nd, 2019 council meeting. Okay, good. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby takes from the table Resolution 416-19, that's dealing with this proposed bylaw. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Okay. So where is 50-2019? Oh, perfect. All right, so I do have before me a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Shea. Be it resolved that bylaw number 50-2019 being a bylaw to approve and authorize the execution of a lease agreement between the Municipality of West Grey and the Durham Agricultural Society, in brackets, repeals bylaw number 46-2009, end of bracket, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Members of council, any questions? All right, calling the question, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Excuse me. Okay, so I will sign this before I move on. Thank you for keeping me straight, Clerk Turner. Okay, proposed bylaw 53-2019. Do I have a motion before me? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Shea, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 53-2019 being a bylaw to establish as part of the common and public highways of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Grey the lands described as part of PIN 37303-40472 being described as part of Lot 3, Concession 14, former Township of Normanby, Geographic Village of Newstead, now Municipality of West Grey, County of Grey, now designated as Part 3 on Plan 17R-1513, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Clerk Turner, when was this before us, or is it the first time?
So both bylaw 53 and 54 relate to a transfer of lands for the Gemini Canada. Back 2015, they had basically purchased some land. They needed some extra land for stormwater management purposes to facilitate the doubling of their plant. So that went through. They were provided some land from that West Grey owned at the Newstead Industrial Park. In exchange for that, they agreed to pay the cost of extending the road and services through to their new property. So these two bylaws are to complete that process.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Calling the question, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. So proposed bylaw 54, 2019. Moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Be it resolved that bylaw number 54-2019 being a bylaw to convey that part of PIN 37303-0472 being described as Part 3, Concession 14, former Township of Normanby, geographic Village of Neustadt, now the Municipality of West Grey, County of Grey, now designated at Parts 1 and 2 on Plan 16R 10623 to Gemini Canada Limited in consideration of its fulfillment of its obligations under the agreement with the municipality dated July 20th, 2015, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, engrossed in the bylaw book. Clerk Turner.
And just further, this was vetted through Ian Johnson, our municipal solicitor of Johnson & Schwass Professional Corporation. So everything is in order from a legal standpoint.
Thank you very much for doing that. Questions? Calling the question, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Certainly. Sure. Okay. So this one is for proposed bylaw 55-2019. Moved by Councillor Hergert, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Be it resolved that bylaw number 55-2019 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a subdivision agreement with John Welton Custom Home Building Limited be now read a first, second, and third time, passed as amended and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. So there's been some changes. That's why we have the as amended to the mover and seconder on that. Questions? Councillor Townsend.
Yes, I just wanted to thank the developer and staff for the letter as promised and the changes that you made. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to the developers and the people involved in bringing this subdivision forward. I think this is an exciting time for Durham. I think it's going to bring lots of new residents. I think it's going to help move our town forward, and hopefully we'll have more subdivisions in our area, particularly Newstead would be nice, that we have other opportunities. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for all the hard work, and the dust is flying, so we're moving forward, and that's a good sign. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope you would convey these comments to John Welton as well, and certainly you're hearing them firsthand. But I too want to say I'm absolutely excited about this subdivision agreement, and I look forward to the change of the skyline up there on the Durham Hill. I think it's incredible, and it's an exciting time for West Grey, particular in Durham for sure. All right, anybody else want to say anything? Calling the question, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. And I do want to say on this one, carried unanimously. All right. Thank you. All right, we have the last proposed bylaw before us, and that is moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Be it resolved that bylaw number 56-2019 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the July 16th, 2019 council meeting be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. I'm calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Great. So we have completed the bylaw section by now. All right. Item 14, we have item 14 is new business. Councillor Shea, please.
I had a motion that I brought forward as notice of motion 2 weeks ago at our last council meeting, and have since had a couple of conversations with the mayor and through her, the clerk, about the logistics of this. And some of the things that came up were, I had mentioned having an informal meeting with council. There is no such thing as an informal meeting. All of our meetings have to be formal to some degree. There was questions about whether or not it was feasible to do a council meeting, which would be recorded, and then Adam would have to get all his equipment over there, or if it should be a committee of a whole meeting, as I had originally proposed, and so there was questions about that. And I believe, Your Worship, that where we sort of settled was the idea that the committee of the whole meeting, our regularly scheduled committee of the whole meetings, or indeed even more so council meetings, are not all that enticing to the general public. Today's an exception. We've got a larger number than usual. And that part of my motion was to have one of our official meetings, because we kind of said we would during the campaigns and afterwards, but also to have the sort of brainstorming session or consultation session. And I was thinking about the session that we had when Stephanie was here, and we broke into working groups and dealt with smaller subjects with smaller numbers of people. And so I was envisioning that perhaps we could move away from the idea of doing a council meeting in our other rural community, urban communities, and do a session where we would have breakout tables and address a small number of specific subjects of interest to that local community. So, for example, I would envision possibly, and this is all open for discussion. I only made the motion so that I could get it on the table and we could discuss it. I'm very open to you modifying it however you see appropriate. So I was thinking of perhaps an hour and a half or a 2-hour meeting be scheduled to address local concerns in both towns. That several small discussion or breakout groups be formed to address 5 to 6 concerns with 1 to 2 council members or staff at each table. 2 to 3 concerns can be determined beforehand through past meetings and consultations that we've already done, with additional topics to be arrived at in agreement with the public in attendance. Sample items might be sidewalk snow clearing, traffic speeds approaching the school. I know these are issues which have been brought up over and over again. So if 1 or 2 council members or a staff person sits down at a table with 5 or 6 people who are interested and spends an hour talking about possible solutions to these problems and a handful of other problems, I think we could move issues along. Some of the issues would be moved along just by identifying resources. We might, somebody might say, this is an issue which has really troubled our community for quite some time, and we might be able to say to them, that's a county issue. We can get on that and help you resolve that at the county. Or that's a staffing issue, and we can have staff work directly with you. Or perhaps it's a political issue. Maybe we have to change bylaws. Maybe we have to do some lobbying. Maybe we have to do find some money to solve this problem. So there's going to be all sorts of ranges of solutions to the ranges of problems and concerns that we're encountering. And I really liked the idea of the smaller breakout sessions, partly because of the experience that we had doing them here, and also because I'm sure, and I've heard it from people who come and stand behind that podium, that we are a foreboding wall of authority here. When you're sitting facing 8 people behind a podium, even if it was behind folding tables, facing the 8 of us, counting the clerk, is foreboding. So I thought that working in these smaller groups would be more productive and help us build stronger dialogue. So how the actual dates per Councillor Townsend's concerns, I think I put a couple of dates on the table, but I'm totally willing to, I'm totally flexible on those, and I'm also very cognizant of staff's needs in this process. I don't want to say, okay, we're taking the whole show and putting it on the road, and we're all going to do this like 10 days from now. I know that things have to happen at a certain speed. So I suggested August and September. If it turns out being September and October, or October and November, I think that's all fine as long as we're moving in this direction. Yes. So I've started the conversation.
Yes.
And I'd like to pass it on to whoever else would like to perhaps suggest dates or formatting changes.
Well, well done, Councillor Shea, and certainly you and I have had conversations about going out into our community and into the small pockets of our overall community and having those visioning discussions and also doing the outreach in terms of what is important to Newstat, what is important to Ayton, for example, and also just addressing some of the concerns, things that we can address immediately just by way of information or providing direction in terms of it's a county issue, we can help in this regard, or a comment from our CAO or our communications folks and that sort of thing. So the idea of having these open discussions, I think, is very important. And certainly, I must say, I believe that each and every one of us had discussions during the campaign, and this is just one more opportunity to fulfill what we've identified to citizens that we would be doing. So I think that that's really important. This is going to be really exciting. I kind of think it's going to be a committee of the whole session, maybe a special committee of the whole. Does it make sense to have it in the fall as opposed to the summer because people are having holidays? That's something for us to decide, but this is absolutely positive, and I think we need to proceed with this. Now, Councillor Hergert, please.
Well, I think that we have started the process prior with the discussion here at this table about our strategic plan. So to me, I would envision this as a strategic plan on the road session that would also be including the public in on our strategic planning to make sure that we are hitting all of those needs of each community. I like the idea of the breakout sessions. I would encourage us to have an evening meeting. It is easier for people to attend. Set the date. I think September, October is a better option.
Okay.
But let's ensure that it's pre-budget, that we can actually address some of these issues, especially if we're talking about multi-year budgeting, that we would make sure that this is all pre-budget, that we get to each community.
Yeah, very good. I'm looking over here. Any comments? Yes, Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's important before we even finalize our strategic plan so that people feel they have input rather than after the fact. My other suggestion would be that we should include Elmwood, and maybe we need to reach out to Brockton and try to do a joint session because there are concerns on both sides, and if both councils are there, then they can hear the concerns about what happens on one side of the highway versus the other side, and maybe we can come up with a solution. So, yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's just a matter of timing and probably looking at extra committee of the whole sessions, but so be it.
Okay, very good. We're just building on this, and this is exactly what you wanted, Councillor Shea. That's excellent. Councillor Townsend, please.
Yeah, I think backing away from messing around with the August 27 dates also gets a little smoother because when I look back, if we actually canceled the 27th council, that would actually be a month between council meetings, and that might be a little too long. I realize it's still 3 weeks because of AMO conference being on, but that would solve that problem, and therefore the request to cancel the September 3rd could still hold. So that ties in nicely.
Okay, Councillor Hamilton.
I like everything I'm hearing. I like the idea of building it around a strategic plan, like having some sort of framework. I also like the idea of some more open-ended, just what are your concerns time too. Maybe we could do both. And maybe I'm trying to pack too much in, but while we're all there, could we do a facility tour? Could we do a walking tour? How can we make most of use of our time while we're there in each of these communities to get to know where all the places that are really important in these communities? So I might suggest a tour of facilities while council's all the way over there all together as well, if we could fit that in.
I think we can. We can walk through our facility. That's not a big deal. So if that's something you're interested in, absolutely. I think that's pretty easy to accommodate for sure. Councillor Hutchinson, was there any comment you had? I appreciate that. Thinking is always a good thing to do. Over here, I'm looking to my left. Councillor Shea, please.
So could we either modify this motion or withdraw this motion and reintroduce it as another motion, Mark, at another meeting? How should we choose a date or dates for these meetings?
Clerk Turner?
In terms of the notice of motion at hand, I think the substance has changed quite a bit. I think it best maybe just that be left and not introduced at the next stage of the agenda. Certainly, if you want to take the time now to establish the dates, that's fine. Or if you wish this item to come back to, for instance, the June 25th Committee of the Whole meeting, if you're thinking September, October, you do have some time to do that. So that might be appropriate to give the time it needs to construct the dates, construct exactly the time frames, how many hours you may need, and exactly how it's going to evolve in terms of the meeting.
Would that work for you, Councillor Shea, and the balance of council, if we bring back a report through staff for the July 30th Committee of the Whole meeting? Just, yeah, that's okay. Just to contemplate some dates and, just put something further together. I always hesitate about putting dates together on the fly at a council meeting if we don't necessarily need to, but I do leave that up to you.
I totally agree with you that
Okay.
I think, if staff can think about this, the day after and sort of, I'd like to get the best dates rather.
Good.
There's no real urgency to this. And I think we all are sort of understanding we're all in agreement about the format, which I think is the most important thing. And I take your point about Elmwood. I did originally mention Elmwood in the initial, and the other, former townships as well, because I think, people up near Markdale would be interested to hear from us in Glenelg. But, yeah, so I would be happy to leave it with staff to come back with the report at the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Very good. And I just consulted with our clerk, as you probably noticed, then we can take that as a staff direction. We don't necessarily need that as a motion at this point. So staff's very clear that we'd be looking for that report back on Committee of the Whole. So that is absolutely wonderful. I really like this initiative. Now, to the notice of motion, which is residing under item 14, new business, Clerk Turner. How can we address it?
So it would need 2/3 majority to go to a motion to entertain it. So if 2/3 majority isn't given, then it basically stops.
Oh, I see what you're doing, because I was thinking, geez, we're trying to not address it, but you're doing this in the backwards way. All right, so could you say it again, please?
So basically, you need 2/3 approval of council to introduce it as a motion at this meeting. So if 2/3 approval isn't given, then it just is basically stops here.
Got it. So I'll be calling the question to put your new, now modified, but this new business item before us. I'll look for a 2/3 and, what's that?
Yes, as originally
Presented
in the agenda.
And if nobody votes for it, then it effectively does not go any further from the table. Councillor Shea.
So I had the impression that notice of motion delivered 2 weeks in advance doesn't require a 2/3 approval.
Clarity,
I thought that
please.
was only for direct motions.
Yeah, well, let's find out. The clerk is looking at his well-used procedural bylaw document.
Okay, looks like I stand corrected. It just goes under new business, so it could be dealt with, or it could just be basically laid on the table, not dealt with further.
Okay.
Right, so it could just be tabled indefinitely. Okay. And the other half would just be a recommendation, so we don't need a motion.
Right, yeah, that other half that we're looking at, the visioning, if you will, a special committee of the whole, that will come back as a staff report, so at our next committee of the whole. So for this new business item, do I need to introduce it, or is it just seen as a withdrawal from our member of council?
Maybe it would be best to motion to table it.
Okay. Councillor Shea, are you motioning this to be tabled? That's a mover. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hergert. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. All right, so that is off the table, and that was a very good procedural exercise, so excellent. Item 15, addendum. We have none on this agenda, so I'm just flipping the page, the last page of this agenda. Item 16, oh, here we go. Notice of motion or direct motion. Is there anything, members of council? Seeing none? Oh, Clerk Turner, please.
I don't believe we've dealt with the September 3rd
Okay,
proposal to cancel.
that is correct.
That
Thank
could be
you.
done through a direct motion if it does get 2/3 majority. That can be discussed at this point, though, if we're still in. I guess we're at a new business.
Okay, so you're looking...
We did send it to new business. I'm not sure if new business is over. Did it?
Yes, I went on to
Okay.
item 15.
If
so-
council wishes to entertain a motion to canceling September 3rd, then a 2/3 consent would be appropriate. If they don't, then it won't be canceled.
All right, so everybody understands that. Sitting at this table, thank you. It's been a procedural pleasure. Councillor Townsend.
Yeah, I would make the motion that we cancel it since it's too close to the previous one.
Okay,
Like,
Okay.
As a introducing direct motion here.
good. All right, so I'm looking for 2/3 motion to, would you say it into the mic? so we're
You just
clear?
need 2/3 approval. You don't need a resolution. You just need 2/3 by waving of hands to introduce it as a direct motion.
And it's to, you're looking to
And that would be to cancel the September 3rd council
Yes.
meeting.
Okay, 2/3, everybody clear on canceling the September 3rd meeting? All right, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, we definitely have 2/3 on that one. Okay. Oh, so the motion does carry. Thank you. So I'm just waiting on it. So every once in a while, it's really good to go through some procedural motions in here. It tests out our procedural bylaw. Anyway, moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby cancels September 3rd, 2019 council meeting. Questions? Calling the question? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Okay. Clerk Turner, thank you for being so sharp on the agenda. I very much appreciate that. So we're back, item 16, notice of motion, direct motion. Is there anything further? All right. Item 17, closed session, incomplete items only, so we don't have anything on this agenda. Item 18, matters arising from closed session, incomplete items only. NA, question period is item 19. Members of the audience, are there any questions? Please go ahead. Sure. That's just fine. Oh, my goodness. Hello, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. This, I guess the minutes from this special council meeting, that's the strategic plan.
Yes.
Before that becomes law, where the taxpayers or public, where they have a chance to comment on it, now I did hear you mention it tonight.
Yes. Yeah, you absolutely heard. We wanted to incorporate the discussion of strategic plan in that discussion that we're having.
This
so.
so we don't spend too much money on the things.
Yes. Very
Also, I did hear Treasurer mention something about Councillor Hamilton. She had regrets there, but I think she also moved the motion to adjourn. I don't know if she's here or not.
So can you just please tell me what minutes you're referring to, and I'm going to look at those?
These are the minutes from the special meeting.
Oh, from the special meeting?
Yeah, way back in May.
May 13th.
as I said about the tenants' regrets,
Oh, I see.
Councillor Hamilton,
Yes, Mr. Miller, I think that's just a space problem, but so noted by what you're saying.
but then down at the bottom it said adjournment, that she moved the motion to adjourn, so you can't be two places at once.
Councillor Hamilton was there, and she has confirmed, but I see the regrets should be just spaced down a bit, and Councillor Hamilton is part of being in attendance. But so, Clerk Turner, are you able just to adjust the spacing of the format, if you will, for that?
Well, they are approved minutes, unfortunately. Yeah, that's, I can certainly make a note at least of that error, but they have been
Okay.
approved by council.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you very much for that.
well,
It's
see,
just a
that's why it
format
takes
spacing.
days to go through this with a
Yeah.
fine-tooth comb and find anything that's not quite what maybe it should be. And the other thing was wood research and development, bill here for $22,000 plus. And that also says that's the second bill. So are we making any progress on this wood bridge business?
22, okay. I'm looking for a response from staff. I'm dealing with it was with respect to the bridge consultation, right? So are you able to provide, I'm certain you are, Madam CAO. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will need to check with our Director of Public Works on the status of that. I know that we had paid the consultant for assistance in a grant application, but I'm not sure where that's at, so I will report back to council on that.
Okay. So we will get a response for that, okay? Thank you.
Maybe we'll find when we're going to build a bridge any place.
We need to build bridges.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tremble. Oh, Clerk Turner? Okay. Go
Just
ahead.
a slight concern about the discussion tonight on the chickens. So when we do our new subdivision, we do a thing called covenants of stuff we will allow and won't allow. So if I put in a covenants in there that there's no livestock, and also with townhouses, you can't fence yards in townhouses because you have to have access through the backyards. And we're being forced to do building lots, townhouse lots at 25 feet wide with a 15-foot rear yard. I didn't want those. I would have had. So, and then the other thing is the apartment building down here. 16 units, can 16 people have chickens? So we really need a verification on these. It's definitely going to be in our covenants now. We're going to put that in there, no livestock. So we put in there no motorhomes, no stuff. So just want to maybe check with your legal people on that of where we are on that, because I'd like to know that before I start marketing. Don't want to sell a townhouse to somebody, and that's my biggest concern is the townhouses. So not against it, just going to have to watch where you allow it, and if certain areas can be, say, like, not allowed in certain areas.
Well, thank you for that question and concern, and certainly it's timely because we have not passed what we're calling the chicken bylaw or the zoning bylaw, so these are considerations that we can look into. Okay, for that.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome, Councillor Hamilton. Excuse me.
Margaret, that's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So to the point here, would we reconsider our previous motion from this evening? We talk about restrictive covenants. You've mentioned this. It raises a good point that if Mr. Trumbull or anybody in that subdivision would be buying a house, what is the conflict between our municipal zoning and the restrictive covenants? Who would be able to actually have chickens in their backyard? Because the restrictive covenants say no, and our municipal bylaw would come second to that, or would our municipal comprehensive zoning bylaw proceed and take priority? So I think there is merit in figuring that out. As you know, I've already voted no on this in a recorded vote, but I do think there is due diligence. A 50-foot wide lot, how are we going to say no to a townhouse who could very much need sustainable food and so on. But you wouldn't do it because the neighbor is literally through a firewall away. It's just, and the backyard not being able to be fenced. So there were, with the parameters that were put on the 1-year pilot, somewhat similar to Saugeen Shores, this is it's not an option in certain areas then.
Okay, we haven't passed a zoning amendment with this particular item, and we certainly haven't passed the bylaw that is going to define the pilot for this. So all good timing, and it's always good to have the dialogue. It's a process. So we will just work through the process as we need to. So those comments from Mr. Tremble are very appropriate and timely. And it is absolutely the right time to have those discussions when no bylaw has been passed on this, and we have to go through the process of having those bylaws approved. And you know how we've been handling it. We painstakingly go through almost line by line. So we'll have that addressed. Councillor Townsend, please.
I was going to say very similar to what you just did. Sure. And when the spaces are confined, I don't think you're looking at who's in the building or whatever. You're looking at what they can provide. Can they actually accommodate those types of things? And that's really what the zoning bylaw will take care of. So I, for one, would not go back and reconsider it just based on one question. I think we're going to get a few more over time, and we're going to come up with our own as we're going through all this process. And at that point, we'll deal with them rather than just sort of withdraw from the topic. So.
Sure. Questions are always good. Dialogue is always good. And this was a very good process, quite frankly. Every council meeting we have, our committee of the whole, is always very good. So that's where we are. Any further questions? Clerk Turner, please.
Just further to Bob Miller's comments about the approved May 13th special council meeting minutes. I will bring forward at the next meeting a motion to amend something previously adopted, which was Resolution 423 of 19, to amend those minutes.
Good solution to that. Absolutely good solution to it. And thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Appreciate that. And because these minutes are council's voice and they're the official record. So they have to be absolutely appropriate, and even if it's a matter of a formatting change. So thank you for bringing that forward. And Clerk Turner, very good resolution to that.
Just in a moment of jest, Bob Miller being an ex-councillor for the Benwick Township, he got me again. He found another little boo-boo.
Okay. Are you keeping score? Yeah. Yeah. And I had seen that, and I just took it as a formatting thing, but, clarity is always important, so thank you, and that's good. Anybody else on question period? All right, moving on. That is item 19. Item 20, municipal act notice. Clerk Turner? Any? I didn't think so, but I'd like to check. All right, okay. Item 21, adjournment. Councillor Hutchinson, Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, does carry. Have a good evening, everyone.